What is up, RetroManiacs? My name is Mike. His name's Joe. His name's EP. We're here to talk about cards. This week, we're going to talk about what is a comp. You hear the word comp all the time. Comp in this hobby. Yes, I'm sure all of you probably already know what a comp is, but it comes from real estate for a comparable sale of something. So people use that term all the time, but what does it really mean is the question, because there's a wide range of what people's opinions on what a comp actually is. What counts as a comp? What doesn't? What do you want to cherry pick as a comp? What you want to cherry pick in the opposite direction if you're buying? So I thought it'd be a fun time to talk a little bit about comps. First of all, I want to throw out, how do we, the three of us, decide how to comp the cards that we're going to sell? What's your process, Joe?
First off, shout out to friend of the channel, K-Dub. He posted something about comp. He's a big fan of comps and being able to use comps. And I think in what he collects, it makes sense. He's very into 90s stuff. So it's easier to comp things, quote unquote comp things, for older cards. Nothing ultra modern. Ultra modern are a lot tougher to, in my opinion, are a lot tougher to comp. Or to stick with your comps. Anyway, so for me, I opened up famously on the channel a couple of cases of Fleer Ultra Wolverine. So for me, when I opened that stuff up, I'm a Terapeak guy. I love going to Terapeak. I throw in the card that I'm looking at to comp. I look at what it's sold for recently. I sort it by date of sale, and I kind of play around with the different prices I've seen it go for. I take shipping into account as well. And then I go to the active ones, because say the comp is, I'm just going to make up a number, $100. But there's 5 listed actively for $75. Mm-hmm. Okay, those comps of the sale are not correct anymore. So you can't just look at those. So I also look at the active listings as well. And we'll get into more detail of why I remove some comps and things like that. But just in general, I'm a big Terapeak guy for the cards I know I'm going to be putting on eBay. And then if I go to I went to your card show, EP, or if I'm selling on Twitter, I kind of ratchet down from that price to, I guess, in-person price or in real life price comparatively.
Yeah, you sell different stuff than Joe, and you sell in a different way than Joe a lot of times, because you sell on eBay and you sell at shows. So I am interested to hear your process, because ours are a little more similar in what we're selling, I think, than Joe up there. So What do you do?
Well, I also use Terapeak for a lot of cards, but for a few cards, say. For most of my cards, we're talking dollar cards, 50-cent cards. I like to use ComC. We logged in on ComC, so you know what the actual price is or whatever, and you see what they're selling for. If there's a card there that's 10 cents, it's probably under, a 10-cent Jeter card. It's probably underpriced, but that goes in my 50-cent box. So that's how I kind of look at it. I look at that to figure out those prices. And we've been doing this long enough. We've seen enough cards that a lot of times we pretty much know kind of what a card's going to be. Yeah. But I typically try to look up on ComC in case there's any. I also like ComC because when you look up a player and a card and number, it'll also show you any parallels. So you're also kind of getting an idea if there are parallels that maybe I don't remember or I don't know what to look for. So ComC, when I'm looking for comps, especially for my card show cards, ComC is my go-to. For higher end stuff, I'm looking at Terapeak, eBay in general, but usually Terapeak's better, obviously. So yeah, those are my two go-tos.
See, now, Joe, I feel the opposite of you. And again, this is why it's great that we're having a conversation about comps, because people come up with their numbers in a different way. I feel that ultra modern stuff is way easier and way more consistent in comps than older stuff is. I see it time and time again on eBay, where there's a wide range of stuff, especially the kind of stuff I sell in my stack sales. It's you look at it and you see a card that sold for $2 and a card that sold for $15, and you're like, what do I sell this for? And it happens over and over and over with a lot of that stuff. So, but yeah, I use Terapeak for a lot of it. I use ComC as well, but You also have to be careful if you use ComC. If there's only one person that has a card there, they sometimes have it way higher than what it'll sell for on eBay. But then,
you gotta click on the cards sometimes.
Yeah, right. But like on a lower price card, like a base card, say like a Michael Jordan hoops base card out of something, you have like you can only sell a card for so cheap on eBay. So like looking at ComC gives you a better idea of what they really sell for, because you don't have somebody selling a card for 50 cents on eBay. You just don't. They can't afford to sell it for that. So yeah, ComC is a valuable resource to do that, but it is hard. Like, it's just funny how all of us can have different ideas of how you get to the final price of the card, and it is hard. It is really hard. Like, one of the things, what do you guys do with the outliers? Like, the outliers are the big thing. Like, what do you consider an outlier? Do you consider it if a card actually sold for $20 when all the others sold for $8, it actually sold for it, but do you count that? Like, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just interested in people's opinion. So what do you guys do with the outlier sales?
Yeah. So before I mention that, I just want to clarify too what I mean by comps of ultra modern stuff. It feels like we talk about this a lot on the show. One at bat, one game, 1 week.
Oh yeah, how
hard in ultra modern it fluctuates. Where you're right, it might be harder because someone might really want that 90s card today, and then 2 days later someone else doesn't want it. So there's a more of a swing in the values or the comps. I guess we were.
There's also more volume of sale of the newer stuff too, so that helps
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of meant like the wild swings in ultra modern versus players that are retired, for example. You dropped a nugget at the very end of the podcast this week about the Victor Wembanyama cards, the 101s being pulled by Chinese breakers, right? Like, you just dropped it at the end to just screw with people, I think. And I mentioned right there at the end too, for our Wednesday show, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. And as you talk about outliers, this happened with me with the Fleer Ultra Wolverine stuff. The amount of Chinese sellers, breakers and breaking, like card dealers and stuff like that in China, who were opening up massive amounts of this product, really screwed with the comps because they were just putting everything at auction. And I think we can all agree, right or wrong, I think we can all agree that if someone sees something that's international, they don't spend as much money on it. They're nervous about it getting through customs. They're nervous about the cost of shipping. They're nervous about a lot of things. So you have a card that generally would go for, say, $100. What just went for $40 from that auction from overseas, and it really screws with the comps. So for those are the outliers I've been pulling out. So I generally pull out anything that looks ridiculous one way or the other, whether it's $100 sale or a $10 sale, and I kind of try and meet in the middle a little bit. I also put or best offer on a lot of my stuff anyway, so it gives people a chance to like kind of negotiate a little bit. The problem is, and we'll talk about this, they want to use that $40 comp, right? They don't want to use that.
Of course.
So I want to be as fair as possible without saying, dude, you saw where that card came from, right? Like, you understand the difference in getting it from me versus an auction from a Chinese breaker. It's a very, very different can of worms. So I try and pull those outliers out and try and be as consistent as I can with, I don't want to say meeting in the middle, but that's probably the best you can do, because people want to use comps different ways.
Yeah, great point, Joe, that you brought up the auctions. Like, auctions are pretty much something I pull out pretty much every time, just because it used to be back in the day, sometimes an auction would go for way more than it should because people would get excited and bid on it. But now it seems like every auction price is lower than the fixed price sales around it. It seems like almost every auction,
especially with the older stuff, like 90s stuff and 2000 stuff.
Yeah. So that's my primary thing. To your example, Mike, I think you said a $2 card, $2 and $15, like that swing. I look at that when I'm looking at that. I kind of go by what is the card like? I feel like if there's a card if it's a card that I think should be a $5 card, I'm going to probably put prices as $5 card. If there's that wide of a range of prices,
so it's a gut range for you.
Yeah. Like if I see one of those, I'm going to do that. I mean, obviously, if there's only 115, there's like $22 sales, then it's the $2 card. right? So I mean,
Yeah.
but if you're talking about not a ton of sales, 115, 1.2, and I feel like it's a $5 card, I'll sell for $5. And the same thing where, I have best offer on all my stuff. I do free shipping on all my stuff, so I factor in my shipping prices or whatever. But I'm like, if somebody comes in with like a $4 offer, I'll probably sell for $4, or for $2 offer, I'll probably at least consider it.
Yeah, with the type of stuff, especially 90s stuff, if you sell it at auction, it is never going to sell for anywhere near what you could get it for at a fixed price. And that makes it really tough to comp stuff for my sales and stuff like that, because people will point to that and go, yeah, but that one sold for $2. And yeah, it did. But at the same time, that person was running it on an auction and it didn't get a lot of interest. Whereas other people are paying $7 here for it on a fixed sale
when they're going looking for it.
Yeah, I've always said this, that you need 2 people to get a price with an auction. You only need 1 with a buy it now. And that's the thing. The person who won that $2 card very well might have been willing to pay $7 for it, but they took their chance and it didn't get the interest because the older stuff just consistently does not. I comp older cards all the time, and always the auction prices are beneath and well beneath what the buy it now prices are. So, I don't count those typically unless like there are a lot of them. And if there are a lot of them, a lot of times too, I'll do like you do, Joe. You go to see what's available now, what is active on the active auctions. If there's an auction, that makes your pricing a little tougher. If everything, I always do that. I sort it by lowest price first. And, that usually helps. That can give you an idea, because, if you're the lowest one out there, you're the only one that they can get for that price. That one that's sold for $2, sometimes you have to realize somebody got lucky. Sometimes you get lucky with auctions.
100%.
That doesn't necessarily mean that this card that sold consistently for $7 is now worth $2. I'm sure people trying to buy my card are going to say so, and I totally understand that. But yeah, to me, I have to throw those out because they're consistently losing. People are losing money selling cards that way.
I haven't addressed the part where, like you guys have talked about a couple times, where people using comps. And I want to share a story from my first or second card show. Mike was there, and I was sitting at the table. A guy comes up, a big Peyton Manning fan, going through my cards, and I had a handful of Peyton Manning rookie cards in my box, and I had just priced these Peyton Mannings the day before using my comps, which my comps are last 3-ish sales. I factor in shipping, all that sort of stuff, because if you're going to pay. If you have to pay $5 shipping for every one of these Peyton Mannings that are on there, like that's part of the price. So anyhow, I have these prices on there, and what he said at one point, well, I forget what Peyton Manning it was. Said, well, this one, the comp is $7. I had 12 on it or something like that. And even Mike said, yeah, probably the last sale was $7. And I'm sure you had to comp properly. And this was after the guy left. And I was like, yeah, of course. But he bought a bunch, so I made the deal with him, and sold a handful of Peyton Manning rookies. But I feel like those last 3 sales are kind of like what you want to look at. You factor in the comps, but people are going to use that last sale as their comp. I've experienced that at shows too.
And
only if it's lower. Only if it's
right.
lower.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
And you made a really good point, EP, twice now about the shipping part of it.
Yeah.
Like if people don't take that into account, like if there's a card listed for $10 with $5 shipping, and there's one listed for $13, the $13 one is cheaper, people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is if it's $13 with free shipping.
It's simple math. Some people don't realize
this comp went for $10 and you have 13 on the card. You're like, yeah, but that person had to pay $5 shipping. So the card was actually 15. The comp is $15, not 10. Yeah.
I always factor in the shipping price when I'm looking at the different comps for a card. Because you'll see that too. Like, oh, that one was $2.99. You look, that person was charging $5.95 shipping. That's why that only sold for $2.99. So you have to, especially with the lower end stuff, because you're talking about such a bigger percentage of the overall price, you have to factor in that shipping amount. That's why eBay standard envelope is so popular. That's why people are buying those, because they could get stuff for $1 shipping. You're paying $5 on a $3 card. All of a sudden, you're paying 2.5 times what you thought you were going to pay for that card. So yeah, that's an $8 card. You have to take the shipping amount on lower end stuff into account when you're coming up with your comps on it. You just have to.
Unless there's only one person with $5 shipping, everybody else is selling it for $2, no free shipping. Like then, then that's not accurate. But I mean, yeah, definitely. But yeah, if everything is like $5 shipping for this card, then you got to factor that in. Like there's just no reason not
and
to.
You see it a lot though. Like you do see the people with the higher price, they get a lower price for the card. Like just sell it for the regular price. I don't know why people do that, but maybe they're okay with. I'm hoping they're shipping it bubble mailer if you're paying $6.
I've had
that once.
Got once.
Yeah.
I've only got once, and that was rough. I paid like
just do free shipping then though if you're going to do that. Like
right,
that would make more sense. So yeah. So you guys have any other comments, tips, anything you want to point out about comps? Anything you've learned over the years?
I want to say this, I want to reiterate for sure. If you're going to use ComC for pricing, make sure you're logged in. You have an account, you're logged in, because that price that you see is different than the price that is just on the regular website when you're there. So I think they're overpriced. The prices are higher if you're not logged in. So you're not getting what the actual price is going to be. And I like ComC a lot. For the lower end stuff, the stuff that I sell them for $1.50 or $1.65 on eBay, and then I sell at my card shows. So.
The one thing you have to take in consideration, I think this could be used as like kind of an eBay tips and tricks as well. Comps do change. I mean, especially if you have something listed on eBay for like a year randomly, and say it's listed for $20 and someone comes in and offers you $7 for it. Don't assume that person's just trying to get something cheap. Go and see what the current comps are, because there is definitely the potential. This market changes so frequently, and I guess that's the takeaway. Like the market is changing so frequently, especially with newer stuff, that you have to take into account that your comps might be wrong at that point. So definitely look into that. Don't just out of hand say, oh, that person's just trying to get a steal from me. Maybe your comp is off. So kind of reflect on that before just automatically rejecting, or, before you counter with something, like say it's a $20 card, they offer you $7, you counter with $15. Well, if the last like 5 sales were $7 to $10, then your counter is kind of insulting too. So just be cognizant the comps do change, and don't be so set in your ways to assume that your comps are 100% accurate.
And my advice would be go with your gut on some of this stuff too, because you can buy like a $25 card that somebody didn't know was a $25 card, that they put it at a fixed price of $4.99. It sold. And works the other way too. Maybe somebody bought a card for $25 that was a $10 card. So you need to have a little familiarity with what you're selling and get an idea and use your gut. You do that once you start doing this for a while. You look at something, you go, I think I could get a little more for that. If it's a rarer card, like some of the lower numbered cards, you can't even find some of the older inserts or lower number cards. Hard to find comps for. If you find one, it's from like 2 years ago, or somebody ran it on an auction and it sold for $1, and you have this card, you're like, this has to be a $10 card. If you feel that, go with your gut, because not every comp you see, especially if it's for something that doesn't have a lot of comps, that doesn't mean that they're going to be accurate. If you have like 2 comps over the last 3 years, you don't need to trust that. If you have a good idea of what you want for it, go with your gut sometimes. But let us know in the comments what your process is. What do you consider a comp? Everybody has a different idea of what a comp is. I want to hear yours. Let me know. So when I negotiate,
you need this information from us.
I know what you're going to do.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hopefully we helped somebody today. That'd be a first, wouldn't it?
Yeah, comment below if we helped you.
Yeah, right.
Any way, shape, or form.
Ever.
All right, guys. That was a lot of fun. I'll see you next week. Take care.
See you, boys.
See ya.